Welcome to Open Heart Conversations, where we come together as community to explore the world's enduring spiritual and religious traditions. I'm Reverend Dr. Jose Miguel Roman, your host and spiritual counsel. And with me is Reverend Robert Way, the Chief Operating Officer of the United Palace. Welcome back, Reverend Rob.
Thank you, Reverend Jose. I'm very glad to be here.
And we are extremely fortunate today. We will be exploring the power and beauty of ritual with one of this nation's preeminent experts and practitioners of ritual, Barbara Biziou. Barbara, welcome to Open Heart Conversation.
Oh, thank you, both of you. It's a wonderful joy to be here.
I'm going to kick this off with Barbara. It's like, I know you believe strongly in rituals, but why should everyone be interested in ritual?
Okay. First of all, to me, ritual is such an ancient spiritual tool. And today, based on all the neuroscience and all the science that we know, to me, it's really kind of like the spiritual tech of this century, to be honest. Ritual has the power to literally shift our consciousness. And when done with clear intention, it really brings you into your heart center, which, as I know you all know, the key to living a spiritual life is truly to be coming from your heart and let your head kind of take over after. So the heart guides, and then the head comes in and gives you the structure and helps you manifest. And in that way, we have more resource to become connected to other people. It's a way of honoring where we are, honoring where we've been, and honoring where we're going. So that's kind of the short answer. I could talk for hours, and I'm sure we'll do more as we go along.
Barbara, ritual has a very long and rich history. Can you speak to us about that history?
I think when we really look at it, the earliest rituals, when I've been doing all my research, really go back to storytelling. When ancient cultures would come together and they would share stories, and a lot of them were based on their mythology and cosmology of their relationship to the universe, their relationship to Mother Earth, their relationship to each other. But it was truly a framework. It was a structure. It was an anchor that allowed you to go through all the different transitions that we go through in life, and to bring some meaning into everyday occurrences. And this I found in every ritual, every culture I've ever studied on the planet, really all has that same core message.
Well, so if we really drill down, what is a ritual, and what makes an action a ritual?
So a ritual to me, and part of this I learned, I must say, from the wonderful, I don't know if you ever got to meet Angeles Arian back in the day when she was around, but I remember one of the things she was talking about as ritual is a way to consciously move you from one state to another through the means of gifting, through the means of honoring, through the means of sharing different elements. So it really, I mean, when we think of something that everybody understands, everyone understands the wedding ritual. It is a way to move from being single into a state of coupledom and, a new way. You understand the blessing of a baby. You understand a graduation. It's the end of one stage, and it's an honoring and move you to the next. And really, if you take it in that context, everything can become a ritual. So your morning tea can become a ritual of connecting to you. Walking your dog with intention can be a ritual of connecting to your dog, to nature. That's what we have talk about, walking meditation, moving meditation, where you're bringing consciousness. So intention is very important when we're looking at ritual. There are many rituals that people do. To me, I call them rote rituals. They don't even know what they mean. There's no juice left in them anymore. They're just doing it because someone said they should do it. That's not the kind of ritual I personally care about. I care about ritual that's meaningful. So if it's traditional religion, that's fabulous. If you need something extra, then let's add it. Because right now, we all are desperate for meaning and for new tools I feel like right now we've been bullied for the last bunch of years between COVID and politics and everything. So we're like wounded warriors, all of us. And there's nothing that is going to move us through it unless we can connect through our heart and to each other. And that's where ritual comes in to me.
Barbara, I've had situations where people have said things like, oh, I have a ritual of brushing my teeth in the morning. And I kept thinking, that can't be a ritual. It's certainly not like I got married in September, for example. That was a ritual. So there has to be a difference between ritual and routine. Yes. And what is that difference?
Okay, so for me, if I'm just brushing my teeth, it's a routine. If I am brushing my teeth with the consciousness of bringing health to that's one of my health rituals, that I am framing it as I brush my teeth, I am connecting to my body and I am sourcing health, then it can shift more to a ritual. My morning shower, for example, is a ritual of purification. I am very intentional about calling on the energy of the water to release anything I'm holding on to that may block my day. Any anxiety, any sadness, any fear, any concerns I'm having. So I literally look at it as a ritual of purification, and that is my morning ritual, part of it anyway. So my shower is not a routine to me. It is definitely a ritual. I know people who do it as a bath at the end of the day to let go consciously of the day. And, as we all know, the one thing that people can use without worrying about being triggered is earth. So nobody minds using earth, water, fire, and air. We're not talking about a statue of Christ. We're not talking about Shiva. We're not talking about Yemenjah. We're talking about the earth. So that's the simplest way. So to use those kind of things, as I said before, my morning tea is a ritual of connection. I turn my phone off. I'm very intentional about, as I drink my tea, I do my journaling, I might read some inspirational poetry. That's part of my morning ritual. Versus I'm just grabbing a cup of coffee or tea on the go in the afternoon because I need a little adrenaline shot. Then that's not necessarily a ritual for me.
So I want to explore this just a little bit more. The difference between ritual and routine then is intention and state of consciousness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Almost anything can become a ritual if it is conscious. So, people laugh at me all the time because they know, every time I see a bridge, like I'm walking in Central Park and I'm walking over a bridge, for me, okay, opportunity to let go of the old. And when I get to the other side of the bridge, I'm lighter. That's just how my mind thinks at this moment. But, you can turn walking over a bridge into a ritual of moving into the future. And I don't mean to make light of it, but I think sometimes we get too heavy about it. And that's what stops people. Some of the best rituals I've ever learned about came from little kids. And they certainly didn't study it in a book. One little boy, for example, 5 years old, and the nephew of a friend of mine called me. She calls me up and she goes, my nephew called me up and he wants us to come over. And he used the word. He said, I want to do a ritual for my father. His mother, when his mother gave birth to him, his father died. So he never met his father. And here's a 5-year-old telling his aunts to come over and let's do a ritual. His mother is not religious, doesn't even talk about rituals. I have no idea where he even got the idea. He asked them all to come over, and he wanted, as he said in his words, remember, 5 years old, he wanted his father to be proud of him. So he brought out everything that was important to him, his baseball cards, a hat he had. He played a song on the piano. He asked them to light a candle because he wasn't old enough. And he then wanted them to share stories about his father. He did this ritual till he went through law school. That's how important it was to him. And he created it at 5. One year he asked people to bring his father's favorite junk food. He wanted to know what candy his dad liked. It was his way of connecting to the ancestors, if we really look at it. It was an ancestor ritual created by a 5-year-old.
So is a ritual the same as a ceremony?
Ceremony to me is part of ritual. So you can have a ceremony within the ritual. A ceremony in itself may or may not be a ritual the way I'm defining it. But, as you know, for a wedding, the actual ceremony, is part of the ritual. Yet there are other parts before and after it that also, may be ritualized, so to speak.
Are rituals form of spiritual practice?
For me, they're totally a form of spiritual practice. Again, when done with consciousness, it opens you up to something greater than you are. It really does, because you're co-creating. So a ritual needs a beginning and an end. And most rituals will start with something: take a deep breath, light a candle, turn a light off or on, ring a bell, chant. So immediately you're, engaged in other resources. And then when you're ending, you're saying amen or thank you or blowing out the candle. So it's a very contained energy, and it's definitely a spiritual practice.
Which I guess raises then the question of what is that relationship to the spiritual? What is the relationship of ritual to the spiritual? What is the spiritual within the context of a ritual?
Well, there are so many different kinds of rituals. For example, during COVID, right now, at this particular time, I am being asked, and I'm suggesting to everybody, by the way, that this is a time for a COVID space cleanse. We need to clear our energetic homes. We've all been stuck inside. It's now a year for most people. And especially if you have kids at home. So your kids are going to school, you're trying to work, you're trying to live, and the energy is really stuck. And part of a space clearing is not just to burn a little sage and walk around and going, okay, it's cleared. It's to connect. The true way of doing it is to connect to the spirit of the land. When we really look back to indigenous cultures where it started, they understood there was a connection between you and the land and the spirit of the land. So in a traditional space clearing, you literally open the door, introduce yourself, and connect to the spirit of the land and invite that spirit to co-create with you a safe and sacred place. And then you can do the bells and whistles. You could do the sage. You could do the clapping, the bells, the chant, the holy water, all the other things. But without that connection to the spirit of the land, you're not really doing it in a way that will assure that you're going to truly clear out and sanctify your space.
So are there different types of rituals?
Well, first of all, there's rituals for every transition. For right now, we're about to enter into spring. So there are rituals around the planet. Some are for the new year, because there's a Persian New Year coming up right now. The spring equinox is here. We're moving into Passover. We're moving into Easter. So this is a time now. So there are seasonal rituals. There are rituals around the moon cycles, the new moon and the full moon. There are rituals around, as I said, graduations. So graduating from preschool, graduating from high school, graduating from college, graduating from business school, starting a job, ending a job, moving into a home, leaving a home, weddings, marriage. As I said, I have been doing this year more fertility rituals probably than I ever did before on Zoom. I mean, this is where we talk about spirit. Spirit works through Zoom. I mean, I have people who are pregnant through doing rituals on Zoom to get pregnant. And again, it's not about me. It's about, that's where you talked about spirituality. We are connecting to a greater resource, and also relaxing the body enough so the natural hormones can be healthier and make an easier time for someone to potentially get pregnant. So there's prosperity rituals. There are grieving rituals, and then there are rituals that are individual and rituals that are collective. I was delighted, and this is not political, but I was really, really delighted when Joe Biden took over that we actually did a collective ritual to acknowledge the people who we lost in COVID. You cannot have a collective grief without a collective ritual. It's too big. It's way too big. It's not like losing one person. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. So, we have all of those type of rituals. And then you can make up rituals. For example, I do a lot of adoption rituals for people, or becoming a parent ritual, which in most traditions doesn't totally exist. Rituals to bring in happiness. So there's all different types of things that you could create right now. We need to be creative. And then I do business rituals for people. So I have something very simple. I made a jar and I wrote success on it. And every time just say you're in a business team, every time somebody does something positive, I tell them to put a penny, a quarter, a dime in, and then they get to watch it grow. So as a team, it helps motivate them. They get to see, oh, wow, look how much we've really done. You could do this individually too, by the way. It's a great motivation. Just like you could do it for gratitude. Every time you feel grateful, put money in a jar, and when the jar is filled, give it away to somebody, as a random act of kindness. So those are the kind of things that, to me, make your life more manageable, doable, and sacred all at the same time.
To some extent, Barbara, you may have gotten to some of what the heart of the question I'm about to ask, because given all of these types of rituals, then at the deepest level, what then is the purpose of ritual?
Ritual for me is a way of, for me personally, it's a way of bypassing my mind, because it goes directly into my heart and it opens me up. And let me give you a very personal example. When I was 6 weeks pregnant, I was in my 20s, my sister died of a brain tumor. And I didn't have a clue how to deal with that kind of grief. My parents didn't have a clue. My brother didn't have a clue. Nobody knew what to do. And the only thing that they could do for me was to warn me not to grieve too much, because maybe I will hurt my unborn child. So when you think about it, here is this, 25-year-old girl being told, don't grieve because maybe you're going to have a deformed child if you grieve too much. I mean, talk about a heavy burden. They didn't mean it. They truly didn't mean it. They just didn't know what to do. So I stuffed it down, obviously. I remember going sometime into a closet to cry so no one would see me, because I was like horrified anyone would see me cry. Years later, when I really got into my spiritual path and I found, some teachers, I was in a retreat in Arizona, and part of it was 3 days of fasting and silence. And as you all know, if you've ever been in a retreat, it's not even so much about the fasting. To me, it was the silence. I'm from New York. You can't talk for 3 days. Oh my God. And you couldn't read. You couldn't look anything up. You really were deprived of outside information. You had to really connect to your own inner knowing. And I got a very strong message. It's time for a healing ritual. But I couldn't ask anyone. I didn't know what that meant. So I just climbed up a mountain. I remember that. And I had like a little sage with me. And I just wandered around until I found this grandmother tree. This giant tree. And I literally found myself on my hands and knees, literally rocking back and forth, digging a hole, crying, praying, and talking to my sister. And after a period of time, and I didn't have a watch, so I don't know how long it went on, I felt like something had been lifted from me. And I closed up the hole, I remember, put the sage on, and got up, and I started walking back to where I was staying down the mountain, and it started to pour. And I just thought, God is just purifying me. I'm just, it's like a baptism or something. Got back to my room, and, I just wrote and wrote and wrote. Days later, when I came out of silence, I remember sharing with some people. And one woman said to me, she was Cherokee, she goes, you did a Native American grief ritual. And I said, no. She goes, we believe that you give your grief to Mother Earth. You find the biggest tree you can, you dig a hole, and you pour your grief into it. Okay, this is what I mean by bypassing the mind. Then a dancer was there, and she said, you realize the movement you did, the rocking back and forth, was used in ancient Mesopotamia to release grief out of the body. I have chills even telling you this, and this is so many years ago. And again, I went, no, not a clue, had no idea. And then years later, when I was teaching in Bali, I remember it rained after a ceremony, and they said to me, that means the gods have heard you if it rains after ceremony. So here I am pulling in 3 different cultures without consciously knowing. It's that collective unconscious. And that to me is the beauty of ritual. It can do that. If you trust, if you have faith, and if you know how to move into that heart space. I think that's the biggest thing. If you're trying to do it from your head and like produce a Broadway show, it's not going to have that same. And I do Broadway show blessings. I'm actually doing my first one next week. I'm really excited. In 2 weeks, I'm doing it. We're opening a theater in Union Square. But, you can't do this from your head and have the same results. So it literally forces you to learn how to come from your heart and to open up. And that's why, for me, they've been so incredibly powerful. And I know the people that I work with, that's why it's been important for them.
So, Barbara, given this story, what is it in ritual that can help someone? What is it about ritual that could literally allow the ritual to essentially improve somebody's life or help somebody's life?
It's a spiritual tool. And it creates a container. Literally, it's sort of like you want to, cook spaghetti. You want a pot that doesn't have holes in it, so it can, really contain whatever it is you're cooking. It's the same thing energetically. It contains your energy on one hand, anchors it, grounds it, and then opens it up for information. So it's both opening and grounding, but it is a container. I always look at it as an energetic container. And that's why, to me, ritual is so incredibly powerful. Whether it be 5 minutes, or you could have rituals that last for days, as you know. Right now, we're in Shivanatri. It's like you spend an entire night in prayer. I remember being in India years ago, and it was sort of like being in Cirque du Soleil a little bit. I was at Sadhguru's ashram in South India, and he had elephants and fire eaters and chanters and it was like this giant thing. However, it was a container for people. Hundreds of thousands of people came and were praying and chanting for 24 hours. And that is powerful, as you know, to be with a group of people who are all chanting and, opening up to some divine energy and to bring themselves to it also raises your frequency. There's a lot of talk now about the divine feminine energy on the planet. And for me, the divine feminine energy is a heart-based energy. It's a frequency of the heart. So to get there, you're not going to be like figuring it all out. You have to drop in. And that's what church does for people. That's what temple does for people. You drop in for that time. You listen to the prayers, you listen to the chants, you're with like-minded people. People are there for healing, for, different, it might be slightly different, but at the core, it's all the same. It's for healing.
So what is required for a ritual?
So what's simply required is have a clear intention of what you want it to be. I have people call me up the time, can you do a ritual to stop smoking? And it's like, not unless you really want to stop smoking. We could create a lot of rituals, but unless you're serious, they're not going to work. So a real clear intention. It must have a beginning and an ending, like as I said before, even if it's just taking a breath and then saying it's over, even to yourself. Using any kind of symbols that you want, but that are meaningful to you. It's not about others. For example, when my mother was 80, after my dad had been gone for a while, she met someone and he moved in with her. And my brother called me up and he goes, okay, ritual lady, what are we going to do? Here are these very conservative, 2 Jewish Long Island people moving to Florida, and I'm supposed to do a ritual. Now, I'm not going to bring my Ganesha. I'm not going to bring my sage. So I simply had a picture frame made with their name on it and brought 2 wine glasses, a bottle of champagne, and I said, this is a welcome to our family ritual. That simple. And from that moment on, he told me later it's the first time he really felt like he was part of our family. And he needed that. And again, it was very simple. Welcome to our family. But because we took the time, we used symbols that were meaningful to them. You know, the champagne was meaningful to them. Having a picture frame with both their pictures in it was meaningful. The fact that we flew down was meaningful. You know, so that more than anything, I think, is the core to ritual. Yes, I can tell you what every crystal and aromatherapy means and all the symbols. You know, we can go into that if you want to do that. That's great. But it's not 100% necessary to have a meaningful ritual.
To that end, do rituals need words?
Do they need words? That's a very good question. Well, you know, I mean, just when you meet someone and you just bow your head down, that doesn't need words, and that says that is a ritual of connecting, you know. So there are things, giving somebody, just smiling and giving someone a flower on the street who you don't know, that could be a ritual of kindness, and you don't need a word for that. I think sometimes people like to hear the words. They're important to them, but that's just as nice. I mean, if someone walked up to me, a stranger, and handed me a rose and smiled, I would consider that an act of love and kindness and connection.
Barbara, when should someone, obviously anyone can create their own ritual, and you've said that over and over again in this conversation. When should someone create their own ritual, and when should they consider bringing someone in to help them with a ritual?
Okay. Well, there are times like a wedding ceremony where you want someone to hold the energy. I mean, I always think of myself as a midwife when I do wedding rituals for people. I am the midwife for them, ushering into this next stage of their life, because they'll be too nervous about doing it right, or they don't know what to do. Something like the fertility ritual, for example, or a grieving ritual, I think it helps to have somebody hold the energy for you, you know, if it can be incredibly emotional one way or another. And then if it's a group ritual, again, I keep going back to, some people act like it's a Broadway show. You know, when I teach I teach at One Spirit second year students how to create rituals, and I always tell them that, you know, it's not a Broadway show. It's not about performing. You are there to hold the energy so they could dip in and relax, and you can guide them. So, you know, things like space clearing, you could do yourself if you are intuitive enough to sense what the energy is. I mean, again, you know, I happen to be walked in a room because I've been trained. I've done it for 25 years. I could feel where the energy's stuck, where it's not. You may not be able to do that. So if you can't do it and you really want someone to clear the energy, then you can't do it alone. You could do it very superficially, but you'll still be leaving things. So, you know, you want to know what your strengths are and what they're not.
Are rituals forms of communication?
Are rituals forms of communication? Yeah, I think they are, actually. You know, because again, for me, every time I do a ritual, for me, I'm always connecting to spirit. Always. You know, my morning ritual before I get out of bed, I have a prayer I say. Very simple. It's just, Spirit Most High, I love you, and I open myself to receive your love. Spirit Friends, I love you, and I open myself to receive your love. And then I say my own name. Barbara, I love you, and I open myself to receive your love. And then I get out of bed. So I'm always connecting. I think anything you're doing, if you're doing, you know, think of the tea ceremony in Japan. It's a ritual of acknowledging another person. You're really seeing them, you're honoring them because it's an honoring ritual, but you're also honoring the land that allowed the tea to grow. You know, you're honoring the beauty, because it's very important that it be beautiful. So you're expanding your, you know, your wide view of things when you're doing a ritual. It opens you up.
Barbara, in a sense, you've kind of been alluding to this. Do rituals have power? And you're telling us that they do.
I do think they do, yes.
Where the power to do what, and where does that power come from?
Okay, again, it's not the power to manipulate, because we're not talking about, people are, okay, I'm going to do a ritual now to make you fall in love with me. We're not talking about that kind of manipulative, which people do. I'm simply talking about the power of, in one way, you're connecting to your authentic power, which is more than your physical body. So you are connecting to yourself, you're connecting to your higher self. It's also a way to connect to the ancestors. I do a lot of ancestor ritual. Now science has proved through epigenetics and other things that we inherit emotions, not just, physical conditions. So it's funny, it's sort of, someone once told me, one century's magic is the next century's science. And when it comes to ritual, when I first started, I know that people thought I was nuts. I think I didn't know what they thought, but I was going to show up naked killing chickens or something. But, they had this version of that's what a ritual is, and they forgot that they do Christmas rituals or Thanksgiving rituals or wedding. They're forgetting the regular ones. Once you start reminding them, then people understand the power. But think of, even, I was talking to some Wall Street guys once, and they're going, oh, we don't have any rituals. I said, really? What happens if you're not looking at, your Wall Street Journal in the morning or whatever? They go, oh, well, my day's ruined. I'm going, hello? Talk about power. It had the power to focus them, so, and of course, we give it power too. I don't want to be superstitious about it. So, if I'm not ritualizing, talking about black cats and going under, ladders. We're not, even though there's a reason why they started that. If you know the reason, then you don't have to be superstitious anymore. But so we tend to empower rituals, and it still all comes down to me and my personal relationship to God, to spirit, whatever that is.
What's the relationship of consciousness to ritual?
Well, again, I know people who unconsciously do things and they may get some results, just like anything you do that's conscious versus unconscious. Sometimes it may work, sometimes it doesn't work. But the more conscious you are, I also believe the more messages you get in ritual. So, for example, I do a woman's new moon ritual every month. And part of it is to, kind of dive deeply into your heart and open up, and people receive guidance. So if you're not conscious, you might miss what it's even telling you. It's just like a lot of time intuition whispers very softly. It doesn't, it's not like Moses hearing God, giving, the 10 Commandments. It could be a whisper. And if you don't pay attention, you can miss it. So the more conscious you are, the more you're able to catch those whispers.
It's really,
I was going to say, ritual works with symbol a lot, and symbols to me are the language of the soul when we talk about words. So symbols are really the language. You see a circle, it means something special. A sun, a moon, it just goes deeper than our ordinary waking consciousness.
It's interesting because I've been kind of struggling with the question of what really is the difference between ritual and magic. And in a sense, I think you may have given us a hint of that. And that is that it's this relationship of consciousness to ritual. Ritual seems to be a kind of externalization of this deep inner journey, right? It's somehow there is this fascinating acting out of what really is a deeply internal, an internal walking. You're walking into some deeper elements of yourself. Would you agree or disagree?
I would agree. And I think we confuse, quote, magic. I think it's magical. Ritual can be magical versus magic. I know there are people who practice magic, and to me, they're trying to manipulate forces, and I'm not interested in that, to be honest. This is a magical journey, and for me, ritual should never harm anyone. It should never have any harm involved. Otherwise, then you're playing with other forces that I'm not interested in.
Barbara, what are some of your rituals?
My personal rituals? I don't know, how much time do you have?
We have enough time. Please.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I definitely have, my morning ritual and I have my evening ritual, because my evening ritual is really about letting go. I also have rituals now because of being on Zoom so much. So before I go on a Zoom meeting, number one, I clear my energetic space, because just like if I had a person who came here to see me or I was in an office, I don't, even if they're the nicest person in the world, I don't want their energy. And the more empathic you are, the more you can just pull in other people's energy. So I'm very conscious of clearing energy and then putting a protection around me. Again, not superstitious. It's like if it's raining, I'm going to wear a raincoat. Before I talk to someone, I want to put an energetic, bubble around me. So that's one ritual I do, where I imagine either a double rainbow, or I like golden mesh myself. So what could I say? I'm a glitz girl. So, I imagine a golden mesh around me where it's so tiny, the lights, that only high pure light can come in and nothing else can enter. So I'm not harming anyone, I'm just protecting myself. At the end of the day, I close my computer. Even if I want to use it later for fun, I close it, I light a candle, and I basically thank the day and say, work is over, I'm now shifting, and then if I have to open it up for fun, it's a different energy. So I do things like that a lot. What else do I do? I do a lot of gratitude rituals. And if I'm feeling at all in any kind of worry or anxiety about money or whatever, my ritual is to walk around thanking money for everything I have. Literally, thank you, money, for my apartment. Thank you, money, for my shirt. Thank you, money, for my tea. That, for me, just opens up the energetic vibration. And I also, like I said, I do prosperity rituals if I need it, or manifestation rituals if I need it. I have another ritual that I really like. There are times over COVID that it just felt like life was too hard. So I created It's Too Hard altar. And when it got too hard, I just would write a letter and literally hand it over. I have an angel, my angel Imuna, who's the angel of faith, on an altar, and that's my It's Too Hard altar. You do it for me, sort of like let go and let God. That was one I created over COVID that I hadn't done before, that I find very useful for me. I clean my altar every season, always. Even if I love it, I take it apart, I clean the crystals, I'll put in fresh flowers, whatever. Because again, right now we're coming into spring. It's a new energy, so I want to do something that honors spring. And I do blessing rituals when I walk. I walk almost every day now. So I'll decide how much time I want, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. Everything I see, I bless. So I'll bless the trees, and I like to touch them too. It grounds me. I'll bless a bus for letting people go safely. I'll bless people's shoes for keeping, letting them walk easily. Whatever I see, I bless. So that's another ritual I do constantly. Need more?
No, these are wonderful. I have to ask you though, do you have to be religious?
I don't think you have to be religious. I find that even people who are not religious, they still connect to nature. I haven't met anybody who doesn't connect. And when you see a beautiful sunset, you feel there's something bigger than you. They might not be religious in that sense, but they know there's something bigger than that. So usually with people who, quote, aren't religious, I'll do things like that, working with nature for them. And I find that's really useful.
Okay, I got to ask the question.
Go ahead.
What got you into rituals?
Well, I really think what got me into it was with my sister. The fact that was the one thing, and I didn't even say it. Before that, I had years of therapy and counseling and spiritual. I tried everything. I tried, meditation, whatever. Nothing really cured me, helped me, healed me the way it did. And then I'm a Sag, so I'm just really curious. So I was lucky. I could travel, and I would just go talk to everyone. And I was very blessed to have some amazing teachers. from Thomas Spinaka, Native American, to, like I said, Jean Houston, Angelus Arian. I had some wonderful people in Hawaii. I met some great people in Peru. I was very lucky. I got to travel, and everywhere I went, my first question is, so what are your rituals? What's in your tradition? And I would be interviewing people and finding out and going to their ceremonies. I'd go to different churches, different temples. I wanted to just experience as much as I could. And the more I experienced, the more I understood how powerful it is. And everybody has their way of doing it, even if they think they don't. There's ritual food, there's ritual clothing, there's so much, so I'm still learning. And I love the idea, right, as I said, for spring, that it used to be a new year. And some cultures are still celebrating it as a new year. And I love that. And when you see what they do in Persia, it's not that different than what they do in some other cultures. And you see the connections.
Barbara, you mentioned altar and altars. My mother used to have an altar, and it's made me think about... Tell us a little bit from your perspective, what is an altar and what should be in an altar?
Well, I don't know if anything should be in an altar. I think an altar is something that will uplift you and connect you again. So, for example, do I even have one here? I have it here. I'll show you. I have a little one. So I was doing a workshop the other day, and I had people make altars. And this was an altar that we created. So, I don't know if you could see it. Okay, so first of all, on my altar, and this is not traditional, I have a little Hawaiian hula dancer, because this was to remind me I need to have more fun, and it's now opening up. I have a candle that I lit. I have different crystals and shells representing all of the intentions for spring. This was my spring altar. So what do I want to bring in and create? And because the shells represented the ocean, I also had that. I have a spiritual figure here of a couple, because that's important for me to bring in partnership. And then we did an ancestor ritual. So I have some things from the ancestor ritual and offering that we made. I have some money representing prosperity, so from a feng shui. And then I have a beautiful crystal that someone gave me that says love, and one that says wisdom. So here's my altar. Now the key to an altar is you have to respect it, keep it clean. It's not a place to put your coffee cup or your car keys or whatever. And that's why I love this, because kids could do this. Kids could draw pictures and make a spring altar. It's a great thing to do with your family, actually. I did a space clearing the other day for a family, and there was a 6-year-old boy who walked around with me ringing a bell. He was my helper. He understood. And then, everybody picked crystals for their intention, and he picked them too. So, you can include family. And of course you could do a spiritual altar if you want, with all spiritual elements. I like to have something of all the, elements. That's why I have air, water, fire, and earth. On mine, no matter what it is. But this is a whimsical one, and we're a fun kind of altar. And then, I have different altars. I have a prosperity altar in my prosperity section of my house. If I were ill, I might create a healing altar. And like I said, I always have a little, it's too hard altar in case I get in trouble and I need help and support from the angels or my guides. So then I write a letter to them, But it's something that, again, lifts you up. And I think it should be higher than lower. I don't like altars on the floor particularly. I like to be able to look up to them. But it could be just on a shelf. It doesn't have to be a huge space. I know people have gigantic altars, and then you can have smaller, just little things that you look at it, traveling altars. I know people who've created traveling altars, so when they go to a hotel or something, maybe they have their favorite crystal with them, or something just reminds them of safety, reminds them of connection. So that's why the symbols are really very personal.
It's really interesting to me because as you speak both of ritual and altar, it seems to me that one of the most beautiful elements of rituals is how much it really dignifies and honors our own inner life.
Yes.
How it please speak to that.
When you said that, I just think of my time in India, where there's an altar everywhere. You could have a store that's the size of my laptop and you still have an altar to the ancestors. So it's just something that for that moment in time, whatever that, ritual is that you're doing, even if it's a 3-minute ritual, it just shifts you. It opens up resources that you didn't have before. And it's a real honoring of your life. And I think that's when I talk about radical self-care, I think the thing underneath it is we need to treat ourselves as precious. And when you treat yourself as precious, then you make better choices. So in honoring, by doing these rituals, you're honoring yourself, you're honoring your family, you're honoring your friends, you're honoring your life, you're treating things as precious gifts from God, and that changes everything. I was very blessed to work with someone in Hawaii, and I remember her saying, somebody came and they were kind of dirty and asking for food, and she invited them into her house, and her grandson, said, "Grandma, why are you inviting this dirty person?" And she goes, "I'm not inviting a dirty person. I'm inviting God. They just have a different face." And I never forgot that. That must be 30 years ago now. So I know we can't all be there all the time. Not everybody, including me, and probably all of you, can't always be in that space, but it's a great place to aspire to. Mm-hmm. So they are honorings. Now and one of the things I learned from her about that is, like, if somebody's on the street and they're asking me for money, the first thing I do, if I decide I'm going to give it, is I look them in the eye and I ask them their name. And I've had people cry and say, "Nobody's asked me my name in weeks or months." One person said, "No one has asked me what my name was in a year." And that really broke my heart. So if you're going to do something for someone, do it with honoring. Make it a ritual of kindness. For me, I like to go buy people food. That's my thing. But ask them what they want to eat. Don't decide that you're going to give them what you want to eat. You say, "What would you like?" Even if you hate it. If you're a vegetarian and they want a ham sandwich and you're going to do something good, buy them a ham sandwich. That's what they need. So those are rituals of kindness and consciousness and honoring. And that's different from just haphazardly pulling out $1 from your pocket and just throwing it at somebody and giving them charity.
Really, we should be carrying these rituals through our lives. It's not just something we do when we go home. It's not just something that we do when we go to church. It's not just somewhere that we do when we go out into nature. What I'm hearing is that this is something that we need to bring fully into our lives and interact with daily as we, travel this space.
And it should bring you joy, too. We don't want it to be hard work and it's like, "Oh, no, I have to do another ritual." It's not about that. And again, like any practice, if it doesn't work for you, don't do it. Do something else. There's 100 ways to meditate. If one doesn't work, try another one. So, again, we have to let go of the shoulds. We're not recreating a strict Catholic ritual or a strict Jewish ritual or a strict Hindu ritual. This is more, lifestyle ritual. I don't even know if we'd call it that, but so make sure that it's something that opens up your heart when you do it. And I think that's also really important, that you want it to be things you enjoy. And then if you enjoy it, you'll do more of it.
Barbara, how can someone get more information? Somebody who's really interested in learning more about ritual, how can they do that?
Well, first of all, as a personal plug, I have 2 books on ritual, The Joy of Ritual and The Joy of Family Rituals. And on my website, I post different rituals all the time. Every week in my newsletter I do, and every Wednesday on Instagram Live, I have the Joy of Ritual. So I do a different ritual, and I interview people on rituals as well. And then there are a lot of books. One of the things, even though she's not alive anymore, I think Angeles Arian, her book, I think it's The Fourfold Way, gives a lot of really great information on ritual. There's a lot of information out there on it. So start small and then, build it up. Again, you're not doing a Broadway show. You're just, opening your heart and making your life and hopefully other people's lives better.
So what is your website, Angela?
Oh, my website is barbarabiziou.com, B-I-Z as in zebra, I-O-U.
I just want people to be able to connect.
barbarabiziou.com, and my Instagram is Barbara Biziou. Yes. Yeah, I am passionate about ritual. I love it. I love creating it for people. I love talking about it, and I love learning about it. So if people have rituals that I might not know, I'd love to hear about them too. That's what I love about my Instagram Live actually on Wednesday, is now I'm getting people from India and Malta and all over the world, Honduras. And so they're telling me different rituals that they do, which is fabulous.
It's funny. It reminds me of a friend of mine who is a trans man. And he developed a ritual literally to honor his new name. To his new life, and it was so powerful for him, for his family, for his friends. It was just extraordinary.
I would love to talk to him. I heard of someone who did a Quincera ritual, who transitioned and did that. So I thought that was also interesting. And in Judaism, I don't know if you know this, when you're very ill, if they think you're going to die, they don't do it so much now. If you are religious, you change your name. There is a name-changing ritual because, again, the belief is, the spirit of death won't find you because you changed your name, whatever. But, we know it's the energetic vibration. But there are many cases of name-changing or honoring or moving into another space. In women's spirituality, there's a big movement towards not just so much a croning ritual, which is because people are living so long now, more a queening ritual when you're in your 50s and 60s. Because you're not a crone yet. You still could have another 30, 40 years to live. So, there are all of these things that are coming in. I think they're fabulous.
Barbara, as we have a few more minutes before we close, and I was wondering, might you be able to lead us through a closing ritual?
Sure, why not? So we're going to do a very simple ritual, and all you need is a candle, a glass of water, and then anything that represents earth. I happen to be using crystals, but you can use seeds, you could use grain, you could use a piece of fruit, anything you have around the house, and that's all you need. We're going to start by put your hands lightly on your heart. And let's just breathe into your heart for a moment. Imagine you could just access the qualities of the heart center. Breathing in deep compassion. Just breathe it in. Breathing in unconditional love. Knowing there's nothing you have to do to deserve it. It's your birthright. Beautiful. Breathing in deep peace right now. Just imagine your heart can soften and open. That peace beyond understanding, that center point in the midst of chaos. And breathing in the healing presence, the ability we all have to bring healing both to ourselves and to others. And imagine from the soles of your feet now, you can drop 2 beautiful golden grounding cords into the earth. Just like a tree has roots. See these roots now going deeper past any layer of concrete, all the way down to the center of Mother Earth. And in your mind's eye, I want you to imagine a beautiful lake of pink tourmaline crystalline energy in the heart of the Mother. And imagine you could just wrap your roots around some of this energy and now pull it up, 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 past your Earth Star chakra beneath your feet, all the way into your physical body, your chakra system, and anchoring it in your heart. Beautiful. As we set our intention to bring in new resources this season, gently open your eyes as we light a candle now to call in spirit. As we're connecting to the energy of both fire and air. Connecting to the air now, we call in the energy of air for new beginnings, to open up our minds, bring us new ideas. Calling forth the energy of this fire now to bring us into right relationship, bringing us compassion, passion. And I have some water here, as this water represents bringing in flow now, opening our intuition, our ability to be in our dream time, to understand cycles, and especially, though, to bring in flow wherever there's any rigidity. And then we call on the earth element now, these crystals representing earth, to open us up now to physical healing and to bring to us all the physical elements that we need to walk this spiritual path with practical feet: the money, the resources, the connection, the knowledge. And as we're moving out of the heaviness of winter, the end of our lockdown, moving into this new season of spring, and you can do this for any season actually, I want you to hold the water in your hand and remember that water can change form. It could be liquid, it could be frozen, it could be steam. And like water changes form, so we must change form to move forward with consciousness. And we can also charge water. Water has the ability to take on our words, our emotions. So right now, think of what is important to you right now. What qualities do you need? Maybe perseverance. Maybe you need lightness, more joy, compassion. Think of all the qualities that would be useful for you to step into this next part of your life, to be truly authentic, to spread your unique gifts and talents to others, to honor them, to honor yourself. And know that you can bless this. You don't need anyone else to do it. So I want you to place your hand over the water now and bless it with all the qualities that you require to truly move into this next state. And then I want you to drink a little. And every day now, for the next 21 days, I want you to drink a little sip of this water so that you will keep ingesting in this energy, bringing in these qualities, and just taking a moment now in gratitude for what you already have. And feel now the love that you have for someone in your life. Think of someone you love unconditionally. And imagine you could just send out this love to them right now. And then open to receiving it back. Just notice what it feels like to receive. And one more time, send it now to your entire community. And open to receiving it back tenfold this time. Expanding your capacity to receive goodness and blessings. And one more time, let's send it out to the entire planet. And open to receiving it back 100-fold. Knowing that you can only create what you can hold. And the more you open to receive, the larger your vessel will be for receiving, and the larger your vessel will be for giving. Taking a moment to give thanks. Thanking yourself for being present and for participating in this ritual. Then blowing out the candle. And so it is.
Thank you. That was magnificent.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See, you can make it up in the moment. I mean, I think that's part of it, is the more, there's no right or wrong way. You know, I was letting spirit guide me in that one, and that's what felt was important. So the more you do it, the better you get at it. That's all. You know, you don't expect to be, quote, perfect at it to start. You just keep going, and then it just keeps adding and adding and adding. So I'm glad we could do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, it's sort of interesting when you mention the name of all of these extraordinary persons with whom you've studied. It's interesting to know that you're now one of those extraordinary teachers. You're just an amazing, amazing teacher. And you've enriched so many lives. You're a great sacred servant. And we have really been extremely privileged to have had you here today. Barbara, thank you so very much. What a rich and beautiful conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And I love that I have two men on either side of me here holding the energy. Talk about a ritual, really.
Reverend Rob, thank you so much. You're more than just a co-host. You really are. Without you, we couldn't do this. So it's such a pleasure to partner with you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Reverend Jose and Barbara. This has been a great conversation. You know, thank you very, very much. And it could go so much longer.
I know.
And to all our viewers and all our listeners, thank you for being part of Open Heart Conversation.